So the first thing I kind of want to ask about is preseason. When we played the Eagles and particularly the Falcons, it kind of looked like we had a little bit of potential going into the season. What's going on? I know Blackman's gone, Mercedes Lewis, but what's the bigger problem here?
Well, I think number one, I think it's a lack of talent. I thought last year's roster was the worst NFL roster, talent-wise, I'd ever seen. And I've been covering sports as a sports writer, sportscaster for 52 years.
Right.
I've seen a lot of rosters.
Yeah.
I thought it was literally the worst roster I'd ever seen. They have got obviously their game plan is to get younger and faster. And I think they had to realize that there might even possibly be a step back before they
Could go forward.
Now, as an observer, it's hard to imagine them taking a step back from last year, but I think they succeeded.
Right.
And they just literally lack talent. It's a horrible roster.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. Nice. And then also saying from the talent standpoint, why didn't we make more of a free agent splash? If we had, because when I researched it, it looked like we still had about 18 million in cap space. So how come we didn't make a bigger splash in free agency?
Well, first of all, I agree with the approach they're taking. This roster is so bad that to go out and sign one or two big name free agents wasn't going to turn it around.
Short term,
And
yeah.
so why obligate some money right now that could impact you next year and the year after and even 3 or 4 years down
Right.
the road?
Exactly.
Would going and getting Alex Smith have helped this group? Yeah. But what's Alex Smith going to do with this group? Are they going to win 4 games?
Yeah.
So in the big picture, I agree with their approach.
Right.
Is there aren't enough free agents in the history of the game,
Yeah.
to make
To make
this
up
team
for their
good.
talent lag.
So why go and get 1 or 2 players
Right.
and maybe get another win or 2?
Yeah.
When this year's going to be a disaster, and they had to know that. Now, did they think it was going to be this kind of disaster? This is embarrassing. The one thing you don't ever want to be, and I've seen a lot of bad teams, but you ought to be competitive in the NFL.
Right.
I mean, these are all pros.
They're
This
all
is the best of the
professionals.
best.
Exactly.
And I've often said over the years that year in and year out, I could take the top team and the worst team, and if you let me flip 5 players on each roster, I could flip them in the standings.
Right.
The
Right.
parity is that great.
Exactly.
Well, this is one of those exceptions
Yeah.
where you can't flip 5.
Yeah.
You'd have to flip
A
25.
lot. Yeah.
To make them look very good. So
Yeah.
I think they were smart not to go just throw money.
Yeah, and like going on that, kind of like Kansas City last year, had pieces in place, but really needed a quarterback and just a couple other surrounding pieces to really get them in, not contention, I wouldn't say contention yet, but they're a lot more competitive now. So going on that, the future for Blaine Gabbert, Chad Henne, Henne's a short-term solution. Do you think that Gabbert is really their long-term solution still?
Absolutely not. I mean,
no.
Blaine Gabbert has done almost nothing that
I
I have
agree.
seen in his now 3rd year
I agree.
to make me believe that he can be a
Exactly.
winning NFL quarterback.
Exactly.
I mean, you see him make a throw here and there, and people will go, wow, now that was a big-time throw. Well, here's my point. Anybody that's on an NFL roster as a quarterback should be able to make just about all the throws.
Right.
I mean, otherwise you wouldn't even be a third-string quarterback.
Right.
The difference between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees is they make these throws 85% of the time.
Right. Under
Blaine
under
Gabbert's
duress.
making them 10 or 15% of the time.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the good player and the bad player.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
would think in this league is how often they make good plays and how often
Yeah.
they don't. And
So-
Henne or Gabbert, they don't make very many good ones.
No, not at all. So last week, I believe it was, they had a big group getting together at the Jaguars stadium trying to get Tebow to come. So what do you think about Tebow? Wrong move? Would it sell tickets? Short-term move?
I actually suggested last week that they consider signing Tebow. It's the first time I've ever done it. I'm a big Tim Tebow fan. Thought he was a great college player.
Right.
Never thought he'd be anything more. That at best I thought he would be an average NFL quarterback. I actually think he's regressed. I think he's been overcoached.
Yeah.
The NFL, they call it the copycat league, the cookie cutter and all that.
Right.
Some players do things differently. in golf, I don't know whether you follow golf, but if you looked at Jim Furyk swing, it's you would never tell somebody else to go swing like Jim
Right.
Furyk. But he knows how to do it and do it well. Different batters, different batting stances
Right.
that are really awkward, but it works for certain guys.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying Tebow's mechanics would have worked great, but they're what worked for him. Well, I think they have messed with him so much and changed so much that I think he's a much worse quarterback now than he was when he came out of college.
Right.
And